Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Expert Showcase. My name is Eric Morrow, and it's Star Wars Day today. May the 4th be with you. As such, we couldn't think of a better topic for discussion than the next phase of the Star Wars franchise, or what I affectionately refer to as Star Wars 2.0. So joining me for this conversation are members from a couple of Wikia's largest Star Wars communities. First up is Stephen Greenwood, founder of Wikipedia. Stephen, what's happening in your world today?
How's it going? I'm just finishing school in the real world, but I've been keeping up with Facebook and the Wikipedia page itself. We have about 13,000 fans on our Facebook page, so we've been giving some updates, quote of the days, things like that. Also had that nice little April Fool's Day prank, which I'm not sure anybody really enjoyed, but we thought it was hilarious. And just keeping up from day to day as I try to check in on things, keep up with projects. But yeah, in the end, the real world is kind of taking precedent right now.
Next up is John Hazlett, also an admin on Wikipedia. John, what's big in your world today?
I'm kind of in the same boat. Real world work concerns have sort of drawn me away from many internet things right now. But I'm still trying to keep up with Wikipedia, keep involved in site activities. And hopefully soon workload will drop off a bit and I'll be able to get back to doing some article improvement. The article, for instance, on Gectel, a species from an ancient Star Wars comic strip, could really use a good featured article treatment, so that's probably my next project.
Last but definitely not least is Brandon Ray. And full disclosure, Brandon is a member of the Wikia staff. However, on his free time, he also founded Star Wars Fanpedia. So, Brandon, what's big in your world?
We actually just relaunched Fanpedia today, so I mean I'm having a really good time working on that, and I'm really excited about giving Star Wars fans just a place on Wikia to talk about the new movies and all the other Star Wars news that's been coming out. So it should be a really great time.
Fantastic. So I'm just gonna jump right into the thick of things here, and Stephen, I'm gonna start with you, and I'd like to start off by addressing the elephant in the room, and that question is, how do you feel about J.J. Abrams taking the directorial reins of Star Wars over, given his relationship and association with the Star Trek franchise?
Well, I actually look forward to what he's going to do. I mean, there have been a lot of different directors over the years. At some point, Lucas is going to have to identify that other people will want to work on it as well. And I do like what he did with some of the other franchises in the Star Trek as well. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he has.
Cool. Okay. Well, Brandon, I'm gonna turn to you, and I wanna, for a minute, talk about the original trilogy actors who are going to be reprising their roles in the sequels. And I just wanted to kind of see who you think will be back and in what capacity, and on top of that, who you'd like to see.
This is going to be 30, 40 years after Return of the Jedi, so it'll be interesting to see, okay, what happened to their lives after that? What are they up to 40 years later? I'd like to see them more supporting players to a new generation of characters, but I'd still like to see them have a really meaty story of their own. Like, look at the relationship between Luke and Leia as siblings, or what it means that Darth Vader is their father after all these years. And I'd also like to see Luke become like the main character again, because after the prequels, the main character became Darth Vader, and I've always been more partial to Luke as the main character, so I think that would be really interesting to see.
Brandon, I'm going to stay on you for just a second because a couple of the prequel trilogy actors, Ewan McGregor and Samuel L. Jackson, have expressed an interest in returning. Should we even go there?
I don't think so. I think this trilogy should focus more on continuing the original story of the rebellion and now becoming a new republic and a new Jedi Order and things like that. But I will say, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan or Natalie Portman as Padme, because Obi-Wan was such a central character. He was a mentor to Luke, so it'd be cool to see if his ghost is still hanging around to help him in any way. And we know that Luke never met Padme. He has no memories of her, so having some sort of interaction in a dream or a vision, that could be pretty powerful if it was done right.
Okay. So, John, it's been confirmed that Episode 7 is going to be an original story. So what do you think that could mean for the expanded universe, and could much of it be erased?
It certainly could. I think even in the best case scenarios for how this plays out, we'll see some substantial revising of how the expanded universe is. And in the worst case scenarios, we could see large chunks of it, or possibly all of it, wiped out or shunted to a different continuity. The best case scenario, I think, is since the actors are as old as they are right now, you could set the movie after most of the post-Return of the Jedi expanded universe. And if the writers and J.J. Abrams have a light touch with the history, you could still fit most of that expanded universe in and have some edits and some retcons sort of bring it all together. But if they choose to set the movie earlier, or if they choose to really go into what's gone on between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, and it doesn't match what's been in the expanded universe, we could see a lot of it go away.
Stephen, I'm going to piggyback this question over to you off of that. And my question is, what would ignoring the EU mean for canon? And can you even begin to process two separate chronologies?
That would be a tricky part on both sides, because there is a lot of material that could potentially be violated with a continuity error of that size. Now, I know that Leyland Shee and a lot of the guys at LucasArts and Lucasfilm have done their best to make sure that nothing conflicts with itself, but we're entering new territory now with a different company and a different director, which it could potentially cause a conflict, but we would still write the material in the wiki as if it was brand new material. We would have to indicate if there was direct conflicts, though. So it's still too early to really tell where this is actually going to head.
Brandon, there's been rumors about certain sci-fi tropes like time travel or alternate realities being pulled into the new Trilogy series as a vehicle for bringing back some fan favorite villains who were killed off in past episodes. What do you think about introducing that into the new films?
I wouldn't do it. I'd rather they stick with new villains rather than old ones. This is a really good opportunity to do something new and to do something fresh with the series. So I don't think they would want, and I personally wouldn't want them to bring back Darth Maul or Darth Vader or whoever. It's not impossible to do, but I think it's generally best to avoid that. Plus, that's more of a science fiction type of element, where Star Wars is more space fantasy. So I don't really know if it fits in with the universe all that well.
Okay, John, I'm going to piggyback real quick and throw one more out. Time travel has been used, though, right? At least in some EU stories in the Star Wars universe?
Occasionally. There have been several cases of trips into the future, which I think worked with the sort of space fantasy aspect. I mean, we had Rip Van Winkle as sort of a fantasy story, written 100 years ago. Straight trips forward like that can work. But even in the areas where Star Wars is science fiction, it's a very space operatic science fiction. You didn't see time travel in Flash Gordon or anything other than the direct trip forward in Buck Rogers. And I think trying to play that sort of very gritty sort of science fiction-y ideas into Star Wars just doesn't play out that well in the few times it's been tried.
Well, my last question I'm going to throw out to the three of you guys, and Stephen, I'll start with you. Lucasfilm also let it be known that they plan on doing spin-off or standalone movies in addition to this new trilogy. So what standalone movie would you most be interested in seeing, and why?
Well, I totally have to go with the Boba Fett film, just because he is such a popular character. We do have a lot of material established in the EU terrain, but not in between episodes 3 and 4, so that could be something we could look at. Also, he would be an easier character to play, considering he is a helmeted character, and if we did a Han Solo, it might be a little trickier to kind of capture the essence of Harrison Ford, just because of how popular his character is as well. But it could go into a multitude of directions from there as well.
Cool. John, I'm going to ask you the same question. What standalone movie and why?
I think something that Star Wars has kind of lost in the past 10 to 15 years has been that sort of look at characters that aren't Force sensitives, that aren't Jedi or Sith. In the original trilogy, the characters, we had Han, we had all the rebels. There weren't that many Force sensitives, and then we go to the prequel trilogy, and Jedi all over the place, Sith play a major role, and the expanded universe kind of ran with that, and we've kind of lost focus on the fact that there's an entire galaxy of people who aren't touched by the Force, who have important stories to tell. I know a Rogue Squadron movie's been floated around in fandom, and that would be a good way to go with it. Something that can show us these characters who have more relatable lives than the Jedi and Sith sort of superheroes that we've seen so much of lately.
Okay, and Brandon, close us out. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to kind of jump off of something John said about what Star Wars has lost. And I think one of the things it's lost is sort of the philosophical and mystical side of the Force. You know, when we see Jedi now, it's more like Supermen, like John said. It's guys swinging lightsabers around. Whereas in the original, it was much smaller than that. There was a lot of philosophy going on. You really could understand who the Jedi were. So I have this really general idea for a movie between episodes 3 and 4, where it would focus on Yoda and ObiWan learning new Jedi philosophies and the whole Force Ghost trick from Qui-Gon Jinn. And I'd really like to see that because the characterization of Yoda and ObiWan, I found them to be inconsistent between 3 and 4, or 5 in Yoda's case. We never really got to see young Obi-Wan evolve into the wise Ben Kenobi that we first knew. So I'd like to see that. And I think it's especially important for Yoda. Like if you watch him in the prequels, he's this guy who's in charge of this really bureaucratic mess of a Jedi Order. But then the next time we see him, he's this, you know, really personable, eccentric, witty Jedi. He has this huge personality and all these different philosophies. So where did that come from? And this movie would kind of fix that inconsistency. It would answer that question by bridging the gap. And just on a more superficial note, it would have Ewan McGregor, Liam Neeson, and Frank Oz, and that's just all kinds of awesome to me.
Cool. Good note to go out on. I think, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Expert Showcase. Thanks so much for joining us. If you want to follow John and Steven's work, be sure to check out Wikipedia at starwars.wikia.com. And be sure to check out the newly launched, or relaunched, I should say, Star Wars Fanpedia at swfans.wikia.com. Thanks, guys, for joining. Appreciate it.